Ladies and gentlemen, today in Orion Room, we have one of the most known traders in the world.
Go to the dinner and you're on the charts. You go to the gym, you're on the charts. You go grocery shopping, you're on the charts. That's where the problem happens. That's when they're saying, bro, like, what are you doing? If you want the people around you to respect the hustle of you trading, focus on 1 or 2 hours a day. That's it. And if your cash flowing is coming from trading, use that money to start a side business.
He had serious problems, family problems, money problems, but that didn't stop him to become successful.
I was talking to my wife, and all of a sudden she says, what's that blood on the counter? You know, I looked down and that was the point where I'm like, man, shit, I need to stop. I got 2 options. Number 1, I paid him. Number 2, I say, hey, fuck it.
One of the most direct and honesty-driven person that he will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
In the beginning, when your trade goes in profit, you start to have that anxiety. I think the reason why people close profits early, because there's lack of confidence. If someone passes that stage, I think you've unlocked a new level of profitability.
60 seconds, if you have to give one message to help them, what would it be?
I think about that every day. What I would do is, so I believe that if your home is stable, you have a perfect balance inside your home, outside you can be the warrior.
Today in Orion Room, we have the pleasure to have Raja Banks. Hi guys, welcome back to Orion Room. Today we have an amazing episode. We have one special guest. He's one of the biggest guests that we've had so far. And we've brought a lot of big people in Spain and in Spanish, but he's definitely one of the top ones in English. I'm so excited to talk with him. I've been following him for 4 years right now, and I'm pretty sure that you also know who I'm talking about. So Raja, welcome to Orion Room.
Welcome.
How are you?
Orion Room, let's go.
How's everything, man?
Good, man. Everything's great. Everything's great. Yeah, everything's very good.
How is Dubai? How long you been here?
Bro, we've been here about 2.5 years now.
All right.
2.5 years. And the thing about Dubai is like a product, right? Like once you visit this place, you see these different things, these different services, things to do, things to see, and you get so encapsulated in all these things, and you're like, man, I have nothing but good reviews about this product. Mm-hmm. Right? So we used to visit Dubai, like let's say every 4 months. Mm-hmm. And every time we'd come here, visit places, it felt like home. Mm-hmm. Right? So after the 4th visit, I look at my wife, I'm like, hey, like we can move over here, right? Mm-hmm. Then she's like, yeah, why not? So then it's been 2.5 years now, and like, man, this place is home.
It's lovely. And what are the main differences that you've noticed with Canada and that change of lifestyle?
It's safety, security, right? Like especially safety for women, right? Because my wife can go out at like 9 p.m. and come back at like 12:30, 1 a.m. with a driver. Like I don't have to worry about that. Mm-hmm. I don't have that fear in my mind that, okay, like, is she home? Is she safe? Like, mm-hmm. those sort of things. Plus also like, the environment here and the cultural values, they align with our own values as well, because we're Muslims. And like, we don't have to worry about kids learning different things in school, which we don't want, right? So that was like a big major thing for us.
Mm-hmm. And I think UAE in general, Middle East is one of the few places and areas in the world that the values are still preserved, families are still together, divorce rates are not that high.
Yes.
So talking about, we work so hard in trading, in business, in everything to enjoy. To buy one watch, to be able to wear it, to be able to drive a car.
Exactly.
I feel, honestly, there's not so many places out there that you can do that right now.
No, not at all. Mm-hmm. Not at all. So like, that's why we're happy here so far. Great. So it's good.
Let's jump into your journey directly, because you've been a trader, you are a mentor, also you're a businessman. Tell me through and talk me through all of these 3 stages and how do you combine and do them all?
So I look at myself as a like a family man first, because I believe that if your home is intact and if things at home are perfectly, aligned, I think everything else will fall into place. Like, and that's a conversation I was having with my wife yesterday. It was like, when you have a man, let's say you have a laborer, right? So there was a story about a laborer, and that laborer used to throw bricks of 2 stories high. Like, non-stop, he used to throw bricks up high. So he would go home. When he would go home, his wife would be there, ready with a smile, hugging him, like feeding him food, asking him how was his day, blah, 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 right? So he had a perfect home and a perfect work-life balance as well. But if you change the situation at home, when he goes home and there's no one to greet him, to smile at him, to make food, like, and have like a warm bed, his performance outside of the home is going to be affected, like, 100%. So I believe that if your home is stable, you have a perfect balance inside your home, outside you can be the warrior. You can do whatever you want outside. You can negotiate well, you can create partnerships, you can have opportunities outside. So I think that's the main thing. So for me, I think it's very important for me to be an all-rounded husband, a father, a son, a sibling, and then everything else comes later on. Because, man, look, a business can fail, you can restart a business, no problem. You can lose all the money in the world and you can make that money back after a while, right? But if you have things happening in your family, if you've lost family, you got nothing else left. Nothing. Because your siblings are going to grow up, they're going to move away. Your kids are going to grow up, they're going to move away, right? The only thing you're going to have left with you is going to be your spouse and that close family circle you have. But once that's gone, what's more to life? Nothing. I know so many people with a lot of money who are just miserable, sad. Like, all they do is they just work, come home. That's it. Who are you going to come home to? So that's why I believe it's very important to have a stable family dynamic so that you're double successful outside of the family. And then, like, you got business, it keeps on running, going, you have ups and downs, stuff like that. So for me, it's very important to have like a very stable family, and then everything else, it comes later on.
What I think is very important for people to understand is that the traders, mostly they focus on what's happening on the charts, but a lot of times the problems that they are experiencing are non-solved before problems that they are bringing into trading as well. And if your life is a mess, you cannot have good results in trading. Man,
to be honest, I know a lot of individuals in my life, my friends, right, who are in their 30s, mid-30s, some are going to their late 30s, some are in their late 20s. And I tell them this, like, look, when I had my first child, I knew exactly what I had to do in life. When I had my first child. Before that, I was just aimless. I was doing like, XYZ here, ABC there, wasn't really focused at all, Yeah, exactly. So once I had my first child, I knew, okay, like, I have to focus on these things first, because now I have a real dependent, right? If you don't have a spouse, if you don't have any kids and you think your dependents are your parents, wait till you get married and you have kids, right? Because the thing is, look, some guys tell me, oh, Raja, you know what? I'm waiting for certain things to align before I start a family, And I tell them this, like, there will never be the right time for you to start a family, because the more successful you're going to get, you will have increased checklists of the qualities you would want in your spouse. The bigger the checklist gets, the more difficult it gets for you to look for that perfect soulmate. You get me, right? And that will never happen, and sooner or later you're going to realize that now you're in your late 30s, you're going into your 40s and you're still single, you're building this business, right? So then it becomes too late. So I tell guys, like, look, like, if you want to be really ultra successful, focus on starting a family, because everything else will just fall into place. So
great advice. I totally agree.
Yeah.
What do you think of because there's maybe a lot of young guys, they're starting trading, and they may have a girlfriend or they may not, but the couple support, the partner support is one of the most important things. And a lot of times it doesn't happen like that, because maybe they don't understand the people that they are learning trading, and they reject their efforts. So what is the advice for all of the people that they are doing trading, they are in the journey, they are not profitable?
Yeah.
What advice? Later we'll talk into trading, but about that partner or girls or.
So the guys who are getting fucked by the market and everyone around them, they don't believe in them.
Yeah.
Right? Bro, I went through the same thing. But you know what? I never told my family what I'm doing. I never told them. Because like, when you're starting something new, you're failing at it, you're trying, you're failing. It gets a little bit embarrassing, right? To tell your mom and dad or tell your brother and sister or your wife or girlfriend or whatever, hey, honey, today I lost again, and then the next day starts and you're like, here we go again, and you lose again. So you don't want to share that, right? But if you do share it, they're just like, man, like, what are you doing? You're just losing money, you're wasting your time. What's happening? But at the same time, we may think that they don't believe in our dreams. We may think that they don't want us to succeed. But in reality, all that stuff that they say, it comes from a place of love, because they don't want you to struggle. They love you so much. They don't want you to fail. They don't want you to go into this, this cycle of depressive losses. That's why they say this. Hey, man, look, just stop this. It's good you're doing this. Put this to the side and focus on a job or focus on something that can get you, consistent income. That's what they say. But also, it's not their fault because most of the time what happens is that when you're young, you're very passionate about trading. So you're investing a lot of time into the charts. When they see that this guy is spending 6 hours, 7 hours looking at the charts and not making money, they're like, man, look, are you stupid? What are you doing? Because it's the same thing when you go to the gym and you want to make a good body or you want to make a change. You're not going to spend 6-7 hours in the gym. You know that maximum you're going to spend 1 or 2 hours max at the gym. You're going to go home, eat clean, good food, and over time you're going to see the results, right? So I tell guys like this, listen, if you want the people around you to respect the hustle of you trading, focus on 1 or 2 hours a day. That's 2 hours. Look at your day and look at what time do you have free in your day. 1 or 2 hours, and that's it. Then don't care about trading. Because once you do 1 or 2 hours, your family will see that, okay, what? He has these dedicated 1 or 2 hours to this stupid hobby, right? So let's have him do that. That's it. Because the problem is when you go to the dinner and you're on the charts. You go to the gym, you're on the charts. You go grocery shopping, you're on the charts. That's where the problem happens. That's when they're saying, bro, what are you doing? Stop it.
Yeah.
Right.
So normally when they get too excited at the beginning when they discover trading and normally they tell the whole environment, and naturally it's going to take them years to be profitable. So every family dinner, every gathering that they'll have and they'll be asking, hey, how's that trading thing going?
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be crying inside, but saying, it's going good.
Yeah, it's good.
You don't have 30 accounts already.
It's good. 1 win, 10 losses. That's okay. I got it under control.
Anyways, now jumping into your trading journey. You've been in trading since 2016? 2016. It's been 2 years, 10 years almost. I'm pretty sure that your trading behavior strategy, the way that you see the markets have changed a lot. What you may thought it was working 10 years ago is not what you're using now. So how has been that that maturation from the beginning till now?
Bro, to be honest, in the beginning, my trading was very simple. It was super simple, right? So all we used to do, so I'm going to explain it to you. So we had a group and we used to do Zoom calls, private group, and we used to trade like monkeys. Simple, right? So we used to look at the 4-hour time frames. If the 4-hour candle would be at a resistance, we were like, okay, babypips.com said resistance, sell, support, buy. That's all what we did. 4-hour resistance, looked over 4 pairs, resistance, okay, sell, 10 pips stop loss. If it's a win of let's say 15 to 20 pips, close profit. If it hits stop loss, no problem. Come back the next 4-hour, right? That's all what we did. The problem started happening when, now at this, I was profitable. We were making money, no problem. Because the idea was very, very simple. 4-hour high time frame, strong zones, high probability of rejection. Awesome. The problem started when price would go in drawdown and I started to remove my stop loss, and I remember, okay, so right now I'm remembering this very clearly that the reason I was removing my stop loss is because I started learning about Fibonacci's and trend lines and EMAs, stochastics, Bollinger Bands, right? So I started to learn these new concepts, and then I started to incorporate these new concepts in a strategy that was working. And I'm thinking, okay, you know what? This new concept is saying that price should not go beyond a certain level. So maybe I'm going to increase my stop loss. Maybe I'm going to have a fucking mental stop loss, and mental stop losses don't work. Start having these stupid ass mental stop losses. Price will go and draw down. I'm like, oh my God, mental stop loss. So then my analysis went from 4 hour to daily, and then there was a point where my analysis went from daily to weekly. Now, you know where the problem is now. So I was looking at the 4 hour zone, then I started to look at the daily zone, and I'm like, let's extend it to the weekly zone. So that's when the problems happen. So I started increasing my stop losses. My losses started to get bigger, but before I was accepting my 10 pip stop, but now I've increased my stop losses. My stop loss started to get bigger, and then I started to get lost in this thing of like, man, why am I losing now when I was winning before? Because now I'm learning new things. I should be making more money. Right? But instead of making more money, I'm starting losing more. So now you got to look at it this way, that, okay, like, you know what, this learning more to make more money only works when you're in university, you're in college, because you're learning more, because you can get a better job. But in trading, it's the opposite. You got to keep things very simple. So I went from simplicity, making money. I complicated my trading, thinking I'll make more money, but I started losing more money. And then and this happened for a full year of me losing almost like $120,000, right? And then I'm like, you know what? I talked to my mentor at the time. He's like, look at what you were doing before. And I started to look at what I was doing earlier, and I matched. I'm like, yeah, like, you know what? Simplicity, I was winning. Complication, I was losing. Let's go back to simplicity, right? So that change took me 1 year. It was a simple change. But to rewire my mind, it took me a whole year to get back to that.
I think that's a natural thing that I've done that too.
Oh, you've been through the same thing?
Yeah. I think the knowledge bar in trading is limited, is finite. And once you know the basic, you know the strategy, you know that the strategy backtested is profitable, that you have a normal strategy. It's just a matter of trading, real life, getting your psychology, getting data, optimizing the strategy, and that's it. The problem is when you start and then you don't have results, you think, okay, I'm not profitable because there must be something that I don't know yet. So you start learning again.
Yeah.
And you start studying. And I was the same. I studied all the candlestick pattern, all Fibonacci, Wyckoff, Elliott, all.
And then a PhD in all indicators.
Yeah, I was preparing for a theoretical exam, but trading is this.
Bro, there was a time I was trading divergence strategy.
RSI divergence.
Divergence on RSI and MACD. So I was waiting for the RSI to cross over MACD, and I was drawing this divergence line, and I'm looking at the candle. I'm like, okay, time for a buy. Took a buy, man. Price would go down. I'm like, man, what's this? This guy on YouTube, doesn't make any sense. But then I realized, if you cannot read candles, no indicator is going to work. You got to be, because, bro, we only see candles on the charts. If you can predict even the next 30-minute candle, you're going to be profitable along the line.
So right now, how's your strategy like when you sit in front of the market? What are the checklists and the steps that you do?
So it's very simple. I'm going to look at the chart, right? I'm going to look at the daily. I want to see where the daily is. Normally, I'm just going to look at the daily because just want to look at the daily. There's no bias in the daily for me. My average trading time is about 15 to 20 minutes, average trade, hold, that's it. Then I'm going to look at the 4 hour. I'm going to see, okay, where the 4 hour can potentially go. If the 4 hour, I think, can go bullish, I'm going to look for a support formed on the 30-minute or the 1 hour. If it can go bearish, I'm going to look for a resistance formed on the 30-minute or the 1 hour. Then I'm going to drop down to the 1 hour and the 30-minute to see if we're really creating those biases. I'm not going to look at the 1 hour and 30-minute to say that, okay, now the bias is bullish or bearish. If the 30-minute is creating support, I'll say, okay, you know what? If we're making a support and we got range, then the bias is bullish, unless I'm proven wrong that price goes down. But man, one thing I don't do, I don't change my bias. unless if it's really sticking in my face. You know, if I'm going to have a buy, and if I lose a buy, I'm going to stick with that same buys, and I'm going to wait for a second opportunity to take a buy. You know, in the past, I would do is like, I'll take a buy, and if that would be a loss, then I'll say, okay, you know what, it's a loss, maybe it's a sell. So I'll take a sell. And then price will start to go back up. I'll close the loss in a sell, and I'll say, okay, you know what, now it's heading up, I'll take a buy. But that third trade would be too late, because then there'll be retracement. And I'm like, man, fuck, does the market know?
There's a camera, right?
like where to attack me, right? But the main problem was that I was changing biases, right? And I think that's where a lot of traders, they get stuck, because they change biases too often. And tell me if this is true or not, right? Has it ever happened to you that you've taken a sell because your bias was sell, and you lost the sell, and then you went over trading, whatever, and then after a while you saw the perfect sell setup, but you didn't take it because your confidence was so low after the losses, and price played out perfectly?
Yeah.
Does that happen to you?
Absolutely.
That used to happen to me too. And like, you know, this also happens to a lot of guys out there who are watching this now. And I can assure you, if you take that first sell and if it's a loss, if you just wait 1 hour, you're going to see that second opportunity for a sell. Just waiting 1 hour. That's it. One hour candle. Just put your hands under your ass. Just wait.
Yeah. I always tell that every trade needs to be treated individually, and you cannot carry the luggage from either from losses or from wins also. If you are overconfident about past winnings, then maybe the next trade, you feel your ego, maybe you risk more because you had a good streak. So I always tell them, it's like, for example, what I've compared it like is in tennis. I always put this example on tennis. Each point is important and needs to be treated individually, because you can be losing until the last point. Rafa Nadal, for example, he's a Spanish player, and there's been so many matches until the very last point of the match he was losing. If he will consider the bigger picture, I'm losing 1 point more, I'll lose the chance. But he took that point and then started winning, and then he caught back and he did the comeback. Yeah. And one fun fact also is that for the number one tennis players in the world, the percentage, the win ratio, the win ratio percentage of the points are maybe 48, 50% of all the points. And I'm talking about Federer or Nadal. And that made them being world-class tennis players. So in trading, I compare it to the trades in the same. You don't need to win every single trade. You just need to treat every trade individually and do the compound effect. And for being the best in the world, maybe with the not so high ratio, you can do it. Yeah, no, that's true. And you know what? Just to make a note on your point, this is the same thing I learned in door-to-door sales. Like when we were doing door-to-door sales, we would, let's say, go in a neighborhood, right? In that neighborhood, we would see these big houses and aggressive cars. So we wouldn't knock on the aggressive cars thinking that maybe there's an aggressive homeowner. You know, like you knock on the door, he's like, what do you want? Get out of here, right? So we wouldn't knock on those doors because we would have this fear. But then over time, I learned that, hey, like, you know what? Every house is an individual person with his individual beliefs or whatever, right? And when I came to trading, now I've realized it's the same thing. Like every trade is completely independent of the previous trade. You know, in the beginning, what used to happen was that I was trading pound yen, and every time I would trade gold, I would lose on gold. So I started to have this fear of trading gold, thinking that, man, no, I don't want to trade gold because I may lose a trade, right? But then slowly and gradually, I realized that, hey, look, if I'm losing, maybe there's something I'm missing, right? And if I can learn something from something I missed, maybe the next trade could be a win because it's completely independent of what happened 2 hours ago or 2 days ago. You know, so you're absolutely right. Like trading, looking at moves, looking at charts, I start to realize, hey, like, you know what, like every trade is completely independent. So you can't marry to a fear or like, hey, I'm going to lose, I'm not going to trade this, you know? So yeah, that makes sense. Now I want to get deep into, if I'm not mistaken, there was a point in your life where you were huge in debt and you recovered from that. Can you tell me that story? So this happened in late 2016, and I'm sure like a lot of guys are going through this right now, right? So what happened was I started to trade, I started to make a little bit of money, and then it's very normal. Like, you know, your friends and family see you making money, they're like, hey man, like here's 10,000, can you
put this with your account and trade? I'm like, sure, no problem. This happens, right? And I was new, I didn't know. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take your 10K. Took 10K, and then another guy came in. He put, hey, here's some money. Can you put this is this? So I started to do that, and then we promised some returns, whatever. And long story short, by 2017, 18, it was a total of like $500,000, right? $500,000 at that time. And man, okay, when you're trading your own money, it's fun. But when you're trading someone else's money, it's a whole nother thing, because now every loss you're taking, you're like, man, I'm losing someone's money. And maybe that someone, he had that money because he got some inheritance. Some people, they sold their home and they got some equity from the home and it's their money. Some people took loans from the bank to give money, right? So there was all this pressure built up. And I got to the point where I'm like, man, what? My trading sucks. It's not working out. I'm losing money. I'm paying people because I'm paying people because some of the money coming in. So it became like a Ponzi scheme, right? And let me tell you this, all these schemes, people don't start because they want to. It's because something stops working and unintentionally they get sucked into this whole cycle. So that happened. And then my son was we found out they were going to have my first son at that point, and that was such a depressive state, bro. Like I got addicted to, so it was just this cycle. I was trading, trying to make money, and then in the evening time I was like in this very sad, depressive state, to the point there was a point where we owed $500,000. My wife had no idea about it. My parents had no one knew except for me. So you can imagine all this in your head, you're trying to make this work. And I remember this one time I was on a kitchen counter and all the stress, anxiety, and all the drugs I was involved in. I was talking to my wife and all of a sudden she says, what's that blood on the counter? I looked down and when you have a runny nose, you can feel you have a runny nose. But when you have blood in your nose, you don't feel blood in your nose, because I couldn't feel the drop. One drop, there was a drop on the counter, nosebleed, and there was another drop. And I'm like, oh, shit. That was the point where I'm like, man, shit, I need to stop. I need to let this burden off. And a lot of guys, if you guys are stuck in this, you have to let this burden out. So then I told her, and man, the woman she's like, you have to tell everyone. I'm like, no, because I had 17, 18 guys. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? I slept that night, woke up, and then I started to call everyone. I told them, hey, look, this investment we had, it's gone. And we had the paperwork, we had the risk and all this because on paper, everything's fine. But then when people realize what has happened, like someone who's lost 70,000, man, for a regular guy, 10,000 is a lot of money. 10,000, 20,000 is a lot of money. So then they were like, hey, listen, we need our money back, blah, blah, blah. So I even told my father, I told my brother, and man, these are the kind of problems you can't run away from. And you can't even run to someone to help you out because no one in my circle could help me with $500,000. Nobody. All they could help me was with advice, advice. So my father said to me, look, call everyone and make a payment plan with them, right? Because logically, you can't pay them right now. Make a payment plan that, hey, look, in 2 years, we're going to pay you X amount every month up until 2 years once it's already done in whole, right? We're like, cool, let's do that. So I called them and man, God bless, everyone was very reasonable. And I told them, I can't pay you now, but let's do a payment plan. We did a payment plan and I started to trade again. And that was the time when I started to do boot camps. Every month I was doing a boot camp. So all the money we were making from trading and boot camps, we were just giving them back to these investors we had. In a year and a half, paid them whole. In a year and a half. So for a year and a half, I found out that I had to make $16,000 to $17,000, and every month that money was going to these people's accounts. Every month. For myself, we're paying rent and food, diaper for the baby. That's it. So for a year and a half, I took back nothing. Zero. Year and a half is a long time. But once that was all done, I sat back, David, like I realized, I'm like, man, like if I could do 16, 70K a month for these people, imagine what I can do for myself. Imagine, I can take all that home. Because the thing about having your back against the wall is like you don't realize what your potential is, you know, up until you have your back against the wall with all the pressure, you know. So after that was done, bro, that momentum, it never stopped. That momentum just kept on going and going and going and going. Because now I had a newborn, and man, when a newborn looks at you in a way, he looks at you thinking that you're the only motherfucker I got in this life. There's no one else for me. You know, so that momentum, that fire, that drive, it never stopped. You know, and the brokerage came, and then we started magic keys and education, and now we got the funding and everything. It's just kept on going, and now I got 3 kids looking at me the same way. You know?
Mashallah. That's an amazing story, by the way, and also says a lot about you, because a lot of people, they've been in that, not a lot, but some people, they failed their business, lost investors' money. 99% of them will just have said, hey, we have this risk paper signed, so you are on your own.
Yeah.
But you work 1.5 years just to pay them off. So that's
Bro, I thought about that too, right? You know, I thought about that. Okay, I got 2 options. Number 1, I paid him. Number 2, I say, hey, fuck it. Like, you know, I think at that point it would have been a civil case, 4 or 5 months in jail time, and then that's done. But if I would have chosen option 2, my children would have grown up knowing that their father was a coward. He ran away from people who he owed money to. You know, so I didn't want option 2. I wanted option 1, that he stood up and he did what he had to do, and like, that's how it is.
And also, now let's jump also into the funding part, because this, I guess, is because there was no funds to trade with.
Yeah.
At that time, how famous or how known were firms for you? You started with real capital, and how was that transition like?
So I've always traded real capital, but I think my situation was a little bit different, because when I came into trading, I was already making great money. Like, you know, we were doing door-to-door sales. I had my own company. We had about 40 agents. We were pulling in about 20, 25K profit a month. So we were already doing well, you know. So when I came into trading, obviously had my own funds, started to do that. But at that time, I think at 2019 or 18, I heard about FTMO at that point, very, very new. I didn't really understand the idea. At that point, it was like a thinking of like, you know, maybe like, you know, companies like these are taking advantage of new traders to lure them in for like, you know, higher money, especially guys who don't know how to trade or who don't know how to handle $100,000, right? So that was the case. But when the industry, I think it was during COVID, when this whole prop firm industry got a little bit more attention, because, you know, everyone was home, everyone was looking for ways to make money online, and that's where they heard about, oh wow, there's these prop firms. And then sooner or later now, like, you know, like a lot of new companies came in. So I think now if you're a profitable trader but you have no funds, I think that's a very good avenue for you to explore to make more money. Only if you're profitable. If you're not profitable, man, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah, and also what I like about firms is that some people, they misunderstand the rules. They think that it's only to fuck the traders, but they are also meant to have strict risk guidelines.
Yeah.
And I want to transition now to risk. You've focused a lot on risk, from what I know, in all your classes and speech and everything. You say all the time, risk is key. Risk management is one of the most important parts of, if not the most, of the strategy. So what's your risk management like, and how do you define risk?
In the beginning, my risk management was to make as much money as possible. That didn't work, you know. But I think we have to first talk about like how do people approach risk when they learn about Forex trading, right? When people learn about trading, all they hear about is like, let's flip accounts, let's make a lot of money, let's retire, let's make millions, right? But if you're not going to focus on what's happening in the beginning, how are you going to make money? Because in the beginning, what happens is you start to lose a lot in the beginning, right? Fuck making money. You start to lose in the beginning. So my whole thing is like, look, let's focus on stopping the bleeding. The bleeding is when you're losing funds in the market. Let's focus on that first, and then the money is going to come. Because my approach is this, bro, that if you're starting to trade, you can control the amount of money you will lose all the time, 100%. You can always control the money you will lose. You can never control the money you're going to win. You know, if price is going to go in profit, it's going to go in profit. If it's going to go in a loss, either you're going to have a stop loss, or you're going to know that, okay, like, you know what, I'm going to cut my loss right over here because I know it's going to hit my stop, right? For example, if you start your day knowing that you will lose $100, how can you lose less than what you've planned to lose? How? That's the thing you got to understand. If your plan is to lose $100, let's aim to lose less than $100, you know, because that's what risk management is. If you can figure out how to lose less, your losses will never be smaller than your wins, right? So that's the thing. So that's why, like, you know, now in the beginning, our approach was like, you know, we will teach you how to trade with, like, you know, SRC and market fluidity. But now we've changed our approach to, okay, we'll help you lose less money. Let's focus on losing less, and the wins will take care of themselves, like, you know, forever. Because, bro, like, look, so there's a profitable stage. Someone asked you a question, right? There's a profitable stage, there's a break-even stage, and there's a losing stage. In these three stages, where do you think people get stuck the most?
In the of course, non-profitable one.
Non-profitable one, right? And then they get stuck in the break-even stage, right? When you're stuck in the break-even stage, your losses and wins are the same, right? So when you're stuck in that stage, your biggest focus is to make the biggest win so you can be profitable. I think that's wrong. I think you should be focused on that, okay, if my wins and losses are the same, let's focus on keeping my losses small, because when you keep your losses small, your wins will automatically start to look bigger. That's just logic, right? And once you're disciplined with keeping your losses small, your wins will start to look bigger. You're like, oh man, like, look, my wins are bigger, right? I think that's where profitability, that's where the first taste of profitability comes in.
How long did it take you to go through these three stages?
2 years. It took me 2 years to understand that I need to focus on 1 or 2 trades, and I need to focus on keeping my losses small. Very basic concept, but it's this rewiring I had to do in my mind. You know, without that rewiring, we're stuck in, like, you know, hopping from mentors to mentors, hopping from strategies to strategies, like, you know, because, like, you know, from the beginning, our minds are conditioned to learn something complicated, like, excuse me, but like learning like, you know, smart money concepts and all these like complicated terms and like things about trading. And I'm like, look, focus on the basics. Once you can control your losses, then start to do PhD in price action. I don't care. But if you can't do the fundamentals, there's no reason to learn all these complicated ways.
Once you have that strategy, once you are profitable doing the basic things, how do you scale and what do you do differently from trading a 10K account to managing millions?
Just increase your lot size, man. That's it, just balls. You just got to increase your lot size. And you know, the biggest issue is, and this is something, so every problem that a trader has, I've been through that issue, right? My biggest issue was, I remember I was stuck on 5 lots. You know, I was stuck on 5 lots for a very long time. I could not make that jump from 5 to 10, you know, because...
Mentally or what?
Huh?
Mentally, like psychologically?
Yeah, psychologically, right? Because, and 5 lots, and I was stuck at that $20,000 account limit. I could not grow my account over 20,000. It was all mental, right? Now we have props, so things have changed. But every time I would enter a 10 lot, always a loss, all the time, right? So I would enter a 10 lot, loss. I'm like, man, shit, like what? Is someone watching me? You know, oh, Raja's doing 10 lots. I flip the script, you know, so that always happens. And then I would move back to 5 lots. I take a trade. I have like a big win, you know, so I'm thinking, man, like, what the hell is this? But you know what the issue was? The issue was that I was not confident enough to manage my risk on the 10 lots. You know, if I'm doing 10 lots and if my stop is like 15 pips, that's like a $1,500 loss, right? So I did not know how to lower my loss with that 10 lot. Because if you're confident enough to know that, okay, if you're going to open a 10 lot and you're risking 1,500, how can you lose $1,000 on that 10 lot? if you're confident that, okay, worst come worst, you're going to lose 1,000, now you're going to be fine with that, right? But I didn't understand how to do that. So let me ask you this. In the beginning when you're trading, right? And price goes to your stop loss. You sometimes know that your stop is going to get hit, but you still watch it. And it hits your stop. You're like, I knew my stop is going to get hit, right? When you know your stop is going to get hit, you should close 50% right there. Because your gut feeling, bro, your gut feeling is more important than what your brain thinks, right? When you got that gut feeling, when I start to get that, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to close 50% right there. And now when it hit my stop, instead of losing 1,500, I'm losing 1,100, I'm losing 1,000, I'm losing 950. So when I start to lose that, I'm like, it's perfect. And the next trade, when I'm entering another 10, I'm getting that big win. Not thinking about that the market knows I'm increasing my lot, thinking about that I manage my risk, I can still use the 10 lot. It's the same move, whether you use 5 lot, 100, 10, whatever, same move happening, right? So that's where that change started to happen of me scaling up a little bit.
And is there a rule like in place, or is more just the gut feeling? And
bro, it's just a gut feeling. It's just a gut. But now my rule is this, like, look, if I'm taking a trade based on the 30-minute time frame, and if I'm taking a buy, and if I see that the 15-minute candle has closed against me, I'm closing 50%. I'm not waiting around, oh no, just retracement, blah. I've done those mistakes, right? Because look, some guys say, okay, you know what? I'm an eagle. I'm a lion in the jungle. Look, the animal who dies of starvation in jungle? Lions. Lions die of starvation. I'm not a lion in the jungle. I'm like your deer in the jungle. If I see something I don't like, I'm booking it. I'm not waiting around. I'm going to run, because then I'm dead. So if I see that small candle not closing in my favor, I'm closing 50%. I don't give a shit. I close 50% because my money is important for me. It is very important.
And what about the other way? How is the trade management on the profit side?
Profit side, it's very simple. Now look, in the beginning, when your trade goes in profit, you start to have that anxiety, right? Oh, it's in profits. I want to close. When you close, it starts to run more, right? So there are different parts to that. I think the reason why people close profits early, because there's lack of confidence. Lack of confidence comes from fear. No, fear comes from lack of confidence. So I tell guys like this, when you're going in profits and you're getting fearful a little bit, close 50% or close 80% and leave the rest running. Because if that runs to like 40, 50 pips, now your confidence is going to increase in your ability to hold a trade. That's the issue. Now when I get my trade in like 10, 15 pips, I close the trade, I'm happy with that, and I'm done, right? But if I feel it can go more, I will let 10% run or 20% run. But most of the time, it will come back to break even. Most of the time. Only maybe 3 times out of 10, it's going to continue to 40, 50, 60 pips. But most of the time, the trade always comes back to break even. And if I'm in profits and if I'm not securing partials and it comes to break even, that's my fault. That's not the market's fault, because the market gave me an opportunity to secure before it came to break even.
Yeah, and also now with firms, that is very important, because most of the daily drawdowns, for example, are trailing.
Yeah.
If you have a percentage and then it comes back to break even, you can lose that account even if you didn't hit the full drawdown limit.
That's a headshot for the firms. Firms have that. That's like a headshot. He's not securing break even. Boom, headshot. Boom, headshot.
Yeah.
That's. Yeah.
And now in terms of percentage also, because risk management, you talk about pips, about break even, but what is the right percentages to use into risks to risk on the account?
Man, I would say 1 to 2%, but sometimes I go beyond that. Sometimes I use 4%, 5%. And the only reason why is, now look, in a traditional trading where your leverage is lower, you're like 1%, 0.5% if you're managing millions, whatever. But most of us are retail traders. Most of our audiences are retail traders who have leverage. So with leverage, you can risk up to like 5, 6, but only if you have a proven concept. Only when you are for sure that this setup, which you've seen 100 times work, on this setup you will use like, more than 2 or 3%. So that's what I do most times. But like, like regular is just like 1 to 2%. That's it. Because you don't need to use 10% to like, flip your account or whatever. I'm sure you're going to be able to do that, but then you're going to be building those bad habits, which will go into your bigger accounts. And man, trust me, when you're in $100 drawdown on $1,000 account, being in like a $3,000-$4,000 drawdown, it's not fun. It's not fun at all. You're like, oh shit, now things are getting real. So that's the thing. Like, you always got to know that, okay, 1 to 2% is max. But also, when you've seen a setup work 100 times and you increase risk, maybe that one time it may have a losing probability. What are you going to do then? That's when managing your risk works a lot.
Yeah. And to have a lot of patience. I hear a lot that their problems that they say is, I don't have patience. And the way I look at it is, you have patience because, for example, when you're in drawdown and your stop loss is here and it has not reached yet, you are patient until it takes me out. I'm not closing that trade. So you're patient until. But once you are in profit or in positive P&L, that's when small profit they want already to close because they don't have patience. But they have it once until the stop loss doesn't go out. They will be.
Man, it's very difficult, man. It's very difficult because if you've had like 6 losses and that one time now this trade is in 6 pip profit, your TP is 20 pips. Like, how do you hold? How do you hold? Like, you're just like, I want to close now because finally I'm in profits.
Yeah.
Like, how do you that's the fight. I think traders have to go to that. Okay, what's gonna make me hold more? Is it that fear of losing again? Is it that fear of not securing this? And then like saying like, oh, you're so dumb. You should have secured. You didn't secure. Now you're break even. If someone passes that stage, I think you've unlocked a new level of profitability. That having that confidence of letting a winning trade run.
Yeah. That's
the hardest thing.
We have firms, we know the data. One of the most revealing facts that I see is that the profitable ones, the P&L curve is normally on the upside. So their winners, they keep the winners floating and they quick stop the losses. But the non-profitable ones are the opposite. The P&L, their MetaTrader is always red. And they have one win, they close it and they put more fire into the...
Yeah, I think they start to chase those small wins. Right? Like when your TP is like 15, 20 pips and you're securing 6 pips, you start to chase those small wins. And in your attempt to chase those small wins, you start to compound losses. Before you know it, you're like, tough day today, tough day.
Yeah. Anyways, now also that you have a very successful business as well outside of trading, how this has helped you or made you more difficult in trading? It's harder, or it's harder in the way of you have a way more pressure, you have employees, you have so many things going around, or in a good way also because you don't need trading at all. So how is that balance like?
So from the beginning, I've had a entrepreneurial mindset from the very beginning. My family has been in business since like the last 30, 35 years. I'm not going to say we were super rich from the beginning. We were middle class. We used to travel every summer, go out, this and that. But like, we would always be very cautious about keeping the lights off because the bill is going to be high, right? So we weren't super rich. We were middle class, had 1 or 2 cars in the family all the time. So I always knew that I wanted to do something in business. I've tried different ventures in the past. They didn't really work, failed. Door-to-door business was great. But when I came into trading, after like 2 or 3 years, I started to look at, okay, so this was in 2020. I paid about $70,000 to Vantage, it's a broker, in commissions, and I started to think, man, look, like I paid them $70,000. I've made X amount this year. How can I have this wholesale pricing, right? Because whenever, let's say you buy a shirt for like $600-$700, I'm thinking that, okay, how much did it cost them to get it? like, okay, then let me approach a wholesaler. So that's what happened. I started to look into the industry. I started to look into like, liquidity providers, started to have meetings. And I realized that, okay, if I have my own license, my own platform, I would have saved about 40%, which means I would have put in my pocket about like $30,000. I'm like, man, that's sick. So for my own, so to have less cost of trading, it would benefit me to have my own platform. So that's when we launched Dominion Markets in 2021. It took about 6-7 months to do that. Launched about in April 2021, just to save cost on my own trading, right? And at that point, I had a following. I had like Instagram, YouTube, and then people started to just come onto the platform. They're like, oh, what platform is this? I'm like, it's my platform, Dominion Markets. They started to come into the platform, and it just created a business on its own. I never intended to have it out to the people. It just started that way. If there's a supply, there's demand, awesome, right? So that's how we started. But then we started Magic Keys, MT5 Simulator, Dominion Funding, whatever, things started to go well. But the thing about having a business and trading is when you have money coming in from the business, your trading starts to get easier because now you're not relying on trading to make money, right? And now I tell guys this, like, look, if you're a successful trader and if your cash flowing is coming from trading, whether it's from prop accounts or private accounts, whatever, use that money to start a side business. 100%. Because I never tell guys like trading is going to be end all be all. Like trading is not going to retire you because you're always going to be working to make money, right? Trading is that. It's just like a side hobby that's making you good money. Use that money to start a business that generates cash flow, and that's where real freedom is, right? So that's my advice to guys who are making good money in trading. Look for something to do, like some business, real estate, like service, whatever that is.
I think trading is one of the best professions in the world, but it's a job, it's a profession, it's not a business.
Yeah.
So it's important to differentiate that. We're running out. One last question, Raja. Imagine that...
How are we running out, man?
We're running out of time.
This guy's looking at the time.
One important question. Imagine everything, your podcasts, your companies, everything gets deleted. You don't have anything.
Yeah.
In 60 seconds for
my following as well. Like I lose my following, everything.
You lose all the content that you put out there.
Okay.
Your message. Okay. Your message is lost. Nobody in 60 seconds.
What about the following?
Yeah, the following is fine.
Okay.
But the message, the content that you are saying, nobody knows nothing about you. You have the following, but they don't know about you.
Okay.
In 60 seconds, if you have to give one message to help them, what would it be?
I think about that every day. Every day I think about what if I lose everything, but if I have my following, what I would do is I would look for a company that's doing well and I would just become their affiliate. And I would just promote.
No, but I think in terms of not losing the business, but everything is private. Nobody knows your message, let's say. So what's your message? If you could summarize everything that you say on the podcast, in the books, in the businesses, in your social media, you have 60 seconds to summarize and say one message to them. What would it be?
Like about myself?
Yeah.
What I would say is, look, man, that's a very tough thing to answer. But I think the biggest thing is this, right? I can only talk about the guys who are, let's say, who are lost in life at this point, right? I know a lot of young guys who message me, they're saying, hey man, look, like we're lost in life. We don't know what to do. We have all this pressure from family, friends, schooling. We have no idea what to do. We have no money to invest. What should we do? And I tell them this, like, control the things which you can control. Those are two things, the way your body looks and the food you eat. If you can control the way you look and if you can control what you eat, your mind will be in a much better position, and over time you're going to be able to control your surroundings. It may seem like a fairy tale, dumbass advice because this advice will not going to make you money, but it will have you have full total control over your body and the way you look. And man, that's so important. So important that you control the way you look and the way you eat. Because once you control that, everything else will slowly fall into place. That's very important. Very, very important. Unless you're overweight and you have money, that's a whole nother thing. But if you look good and you have no money, man, people treat you differently. It's the way of life. It's a fact. People treat you differently, and then your mind, you go in this clarity mode where you start to find opportunities, automatically starts to happen. It may seem like a far-fetched idea, but people who've been through this, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Not all successful people, they are extremely fit, but definitely every person that takes care of their health and nutrition, they get more successful in other areas on their life.
Yeah, exactly. Because maybe, sorry, we're running out of time, but 15, 20 years ago, if you look at people who made a lot of money, they were not that great shape. But if you look at people who are making money now, they're all in great shape. Like, look, David, 24 years old, wearing a $100,000 plus watch. That was not normal 5 years ago. And now it's normal because guys, you look at all the guys who are making money, you're going to find out that all of them, majority are in great shape. They eat healthy, they have a great routine, and they're doing well. And it just takes time and discipline to do that.
Awesome. Raja, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And hoping for a part 2 soon.
Yes, we'll do it.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.